Hi, my name is Alex Churchill. I am one of the featured artists in the 70th annual A1 show at Silvermine. I am a painter living in Connecticut, and I am also a guild member here at Silvermine. Pictured here is a person that looks just like me, because it is me, painting my latest piece. This is me and my two brothers in the early 90s, about to embark on one of our many unsupervised missions to damage our own bodies in as many ways as possible. Rambling around the Vermont countryside, creating our own adventures, exercised our imaginations and stimulated a lot of creativity in me. This is the town of Orwell, Vermont. It's one of the towns where I grew up and was the backdrop of these escapades with my brothers. Not only did it lay a groundwork for my lifelong appreciation of the beauty of the natural world, but it provided an inspiration for my artistic origins, as I would illustrate the comic book heroes, Ninja Turtles, and Star Wars characters my brothers and I would pretend to be in those woods. This is my studio, and it is where I create the artwork these days. Now, instead of drawing the superheroes I wanted to be, I make paintings of how I really am. Like this one. Though most of my paintings are a form of self-portraiture, this one is an actual self-portrait that represents the build-up of insecurities and self-doubt to a point of cathartic realization. I use my painting as a form of self-expression, but also as a way of interfacing with the world I occupy in an investigative way. Each painting is a question to myself and to the viewer about myself and the viewer, and how we interact with our environment and the society we find ourselves in. Here are two images of myself enjoying work at the Meow Wolf Collective installation in Santa Fe, New Mexico on the left, and a work by James Turrell at Mass MoCA on the right. These works, particularly Everything by Turrell, exemplify how art offers a way to re-examine the world and how we fit in it. Many old masters offered a way of interfacing with the sublime through religious painting, and I think Turrell provides a new way of doing that today. I've always seen art as a crucible of new ways of thinking. When you truly engage with it, your ideas and experiences are being tossed in the pot and melting into someone else's to create a new and novel alloy. Along with Turrell, there are many artists that I love who influence my work. These two paintings show eye-catching and attention-grabbing ways of depicting universal concerns. In Goya's painting on the left, commonly known as The Witch's Spell, we see a gruesome interpretation of fear, anxiety, and caution. In Bruegel's Blind Leading the Blind, we see his wry sense of humor in a parable of the dangers of following an unreliable leader. These ideas easily translate to our own time, and their methods for doing so greatly inform my own. These are two paintings by contemporary artists that I really admire and whose work and ideas are very influential to me. In Nicole Eisenman's The Triumph of Poverty on the left, you see a reference to the previous Bruegel painting that adds to the allegorical theme and satirical absurdity of the painting done after the recession of 2008. The other is Pastimes by Kerry James Marshall, which takes the pastoral leisure scene of classic art and recontextualizes it to explore personal identity and establish a sense of place in society. In this piece, called Untitled Girl, in the Love in the Time of Anxiety series, I explore some of these same themes. Overall, the piece asks the viewer to consider ideas of isolation and fear in a time where many people are cut off from their routines and are forced to confront uncertainties and the challenge of being with and getting to know themselves. Representing this in a visually disharmonious and yet alluring way with conflicting painting styles and a touch of humor lends itself to an absurdist perspective of the somewhat difficult subject matter. Investigating rapidly changing socio-political spheres and the extremes within them is of great interest to me. For example, this piece called The Lost and Love Lacking highlights the distressing trend of racism being destigmatized and hate groups being validated and encouraged to parade their misplaced and misguided vitriol. A sense of place also comes to play in my work. For a short while, I lived in close proximity to extremely wealthy communities in Greenwich, Connecticut. One of my particularly out-of-touch neighbors owned the menacing-looking house I used as reference for this painting, titled Privileged Information, Nigel. It was made to show the dissociative feeling of living in an affluent area coming from my less prosperous rural background. And the subtitle of the piece, Nigel, is a nod to the song by the band XTC. Little fun fact there for you, folks. The way I use conflicting and contrasting painting styles satisfies the goal to provoke a certain tension that sustains an interest in the work. Having a visual disharmony creates a set of problems that the mind of the viewer wants to solve and lays a groundwork for navigating the questions that the work poses. The last slide, a drawing of a unicorn, shows exactly how including non sequitur imagery can create a disorientation that commands attention and forces the brain to attempt finding a logical reasoning, even when there may be none. This painting, entitled I Worship the Sun, is an example of that approach put to good use. Contradictory and divergent imagery, combined with a diversity of materials, provides the visual language to describe multiple levels of attention, confusion, and anxiety. Materials play an important role in my work. Experimenting with different techniques allows me to discover new ways of expressing a certain feeling, and it challenges me to continually change and evolve my work. Here I have the materials for the old way of making my own oil paints. I also use spray paint, airbrush, plaster, collage, pencil drawing, painter's caulking, markers, colored pencil, and cutting right into the canvas. This is an in-progress photo of a piece in which I used airbrush to establish a background that has both depth and flatness simultaneously. Over that, I used acrylic, oil, and more airbrush to finally get the desired look. These two images show the way I'll experiment with materials meant for something else, but work perfectly for what I need. Here I have used spray foam crack filler to create fake Cheetos that I then glued directly to the canvas. The outcome delivers a feeling of immersiveness that pulls you in while you are simultaneously being repelled with competing painting styles and materials. The end result is an absurdist tableau of disarray that implies a loss of direction and an unknown destination for the travelers. I start out a piece by first doing multiple rough sketches for the idea. I work through composition and position of the figures along with other visual elements. I'll also try to determine color schemes with the sketches, but sometimes the painting tends to stray away from the original idea. I don't usually plan out exactly what will go into the piece ahead of time. It's always a rough sketch first. I have a basic idea in my head of how I want it to look, but it will change and reveal itself as I'm working on it. It will almost have its own intentions and make its own decisions for what comes next after each step. The final product is a piece that is visually resolved, with clashing elements that work in concert with each other to convey an amorphous and intangible feeling in one immutable and static image, to act as an emotional codex that is transmitted from one mind to another.